It's Monday, March 4th, 2013, and let's talk about what happened this weekend over at XDAdevelopers.com. To start things off, as you guys know, I am a bit of a Linux guy, so when I see something that has the word Linux in it pop up on the XDA portal, you know I've got to talk about it. Now, a relatively major issue with Android is that once a version of Android is released, there really are no kernel updates. So until you get the next version of Android, you don't get any updates, you don't get the security updates or the performance improvements, the new drivers, things like that. Which is actually why custom kernels like Franco's kernel and other things of that nature are so popular, is because they're able to add these performance tweaks, they're able to, in some cases, compile newer kernels. Which brings us to the first story. XDA senior member eDuck has gone ahead and compiled the Linux kernel version 3.4 for the Samsung i9001. That is the Samsung Galaxy S Plus, if you're not familiar with it, like I definitely am not. Now, as I mentioned, newer kernel means newer drivers, better performance, tweaks, things like that. And specifically, this release is supposed to improve CPU performance, networking speed, and battery performance and battery life. So if you have the i9001, you may want to take a look at this version of the kernel. However, he does still mention that it's very early, it is still kind of considered an alpha, but the list of not working is non-existent, so apparently this is supposed to be pretty good. So make sure to read through the forum thread if you decide to try this out and see if it's something that you're interested in. Moving right along, we do tend to spend a lot of time here on XDA talking about the big ticket, big name devices like the Samsungs, the Sonys, the Nexus devices, of course, but there definitely is still a place out there for those not so mainstream, not so AAA title devices. And while it may not have a forum on the XDA site yet, there are probably still users out there using whatever device it is you've got and developing for it. One such story popped up on the portal this weekend with regard to the Karbonn Smart Tab 8 and 10. Specifically, that XDA senior member Ankit Daruler has put together a forum thread on XDA for these two devices. And in that thread, he's got things like how to root them, how to put in custom recoveries, stock ROMs for them. Pretty much if you have the Smart Tab 8 or 10, you can go to this thread and get all sorts of information on things you might want to do to it. And if you have something you'd like to contribute, this is a good place to go. It's one unified thread. So like I said, if you've got one of those devices, do make sure to check out the thread. And if you have another device that's not necessarily got its own thread yet, do make sure to check out some of the general Android development forums, or there's a lot of other forums out there. The XDA site is so big. Just maybe search for your device or search the general areas to see if your device may be out there. And anyway, let's go ahead and keep things rolling. If you've tried out the later versions of Jelly Bean, you've probably noticed the quick settings toggles that have started popping up. And you can swipe down from the top and hit the quick settings button, or swipe down from a different part of the top if you're using a tablet. And then you've got a list of quick settings that are available. But they're very limited, they don't work particularly well, they don't necessarily do the things you would expect them to do. And if you're not on Jelly Bean, at least I think it's version 4.2 of Jelly Bean, you're kinda out of luck. Until now, of course. I'm sure this has been available before, but there's another application created by XDA recognized contributor mdroid that was featured on the portal this weekend. The app is called Quick Settings, and it allows Android users using Android version 2.3 or higher to get access to a metric boatload of different toggles on your device. There's a free and a paid version. The free version involves swiping down the notification bar and then hitting a toggle there that will take you to a second notification screen. There you go. Takes a little while to come up on mine, and it's probably because I'm running Signage and Mod on the Galaxy Nexus, but never mind. And you see there I've got a bunch of toggles available. However, the problem that I see with it is most of the settings for it are only available in the Pro version, and I can't seem to find the Pro version in the Play Store, so maybe I'm doing something wrong. But one way or another, it does give you access to a bunch of different options, and you can customize them a little bit in the free version. So if you have not tried this out already, it might be worth taking a look at it. As you can see, I went ahead and installed it just to see what the hype was about. It gets the job done, although I don't know if I'm going to keep it. If you want to have it as a custom gesture, you swipe out from a certain place and have it show those notifications, you have to pay for the Pro version. And again, I could not find the Pro version myself, so my fault, I'm sure. But anyway, if this is something you're interested in, again, do make sure to check out the forum thread. And the last couple of stories, not exactly Android related. First up, we've talked about it before, I think very, very briefly. There's another mobile operating system out there called Tizen OS. Well, luckily, if you're not familiar with this, you can go over to the XDA site. There is a brief history of Tizen OS, where it came from, where it's going. Primarily because Samsung and Intel showed up at Mobile World Congress and decided to demo it and give this big spiel about how that's where they're going. At least that's where they're going in some form or fashion. I don't believe believe Samsung's actually going to abandon Android, but they are still working on it. And for those of you from the Linux world, just a sort of a brief summary, they sort of went from Mamo and Moblin to MeeGo, which is something that I've reviewed in the past on a netbook, to Tizen, after MeeGo got kind of abandoned and shelved. Now I can already hear the comments. I can hear them from the future. It's got to be the exploding TARDIS. Everybody's wondering what this is going to be for. Why would you want this instead of Android? Well, much like some other different mobile operating systems, you can actually run Android apps on top of it, and you get Linux apps as well. When I ran MeeGo before, you were able to run RPMs, Red Hat packages, Fedora packages, things like that, on top of it. And you could custom compile these RPM packages or pull in ones from different repositories. So it was actually like running a full-fledged Linux distribution on top of whatever device you were using. Except in this case, it's going to be ARM devices primarily instead of the x86 netbook I was using. But one way or another, this is definitely another option that's out there. You know, with Ubuntu Touch coming and Firefox's Boot to Gecko coming, there's always going to be more people that throw their hat into the ring, and this is one that actually has a bit of a long history behind it. And it looks like we've already got a forum out there for Tizen and Bada, so if you want to go ahead and check that out, you can see all of the work people are doing on porting things over, or just getting started on development with it, because the Tizen 2.0 SDK just became available. And like I said, they're going to have this application compatibility layer on top of Tizen that will allow you to run Android apps in sort of an Android player. Although the video that I saw of it, it kind of looks wonky and it kind of looks early. It's still a start. And the last thing to talk about, Windows RT. We've talked before about how the XDA community is making this huge concerted effort to start porting things over from Windows 8 to Windows RT, or just from Windows in general to Windows RT. Well, to help in that process, because apparently they have ported quite a few apps. I looked earlier and it looks like they've got 30-40 apps ported at this point. XDA senior member No2Kim has put together a porting guide for porting things over to Windows RT. So if you have an open source app that you'd like to help port over, you can definitely go ahead and take a look at his guide and see if you can help out in some way. If you have another app, it may not be exactly doable, but it might be worth a shot. Just go ahead and read over his porting guide, see if there's anything you can do to help out, if this is something you're interested in doing, if you have a Windows RT device. But you know what? That's about all I've got for you today. If you like this video, do make sure to hit that like button down below. And as always, subscribe to receive our content as soon as it becomes available. But thank you so much for watching either way, and I will see you again on Friday.